Didn't need that either. Sorry. Sometimes we feel like we have to say something. And I just dropped so many cards on the ground. Jeez. Oh, Lord. Okay. We'll deal with that when we get there. I don't know if you have to say something all the time. Especially since there's so much that can be said just with a facial expression. Or the expression of your body. Expression through touch. Expression through a sigh. Or you can express through, other people's art. I don't know how many friendships I've made through the enjoyment of other people's art. I would say that's probably the majority of my friendships. I've had the great good fortune of meeting people who find me at the right time and they say, hey, check this out. I think you might like this. And then I do like it, and I end up liking it a lot. And that is something very beautiful about art, is it gives us the opportunity to connect with others. I think on some level, it's sort of I say this as somebody who has done it a lot. I think it's a tremendous sadness to go to a concert or to go see a movie alone. Not to say that there's anything wrong with doing that. You're certainly allowed to do that. Anybody's allowed to do that and deserves it sometimes. Depends on, who you are, how you work as a person. Some people like being alone. Sometimes I like being alone. Ace of Wands. But I don't like being alone all the time. And for myself personally, I've come out of a cycle of what I would call relative hermitage over the last 3 or so years. And it was the first time I ever lived somewhere by myself. Nobody else to help me, nobody else to, take care of the chores. It's all me. It was all me. 5 of Swords. So let's look at these two together. I brought out the Toth Tarot today, so it's going to be one of those readings. It's mean energy. It's the kind of energy that, floats around after you've had an argument with somebody. And you go, they don't know what they're talking about. I know what I'm talking about. They don't know whatever. Are you kidding me? The thing about conflict is conflicts arise when we think that we know the other person and they think they know us. And so we're not actually fighting with the other person. We're fighting with our projections onto the other person. We're fighting with our imagination. I don't know how many arguments I've had in the past in my own head, because I had this idea of the other person that I thought I would be able to get them to change, to see my side of things, to see my point of view, to persuade them. If I could only just persuade you to behave like I want you to behave. that goes nowhere. It goes nowhere. And it leads to this, the Hermit. And the Thoth Tarot, the Hermit, is a very bizarre card. I don't even know if you can even see the human figure, because it's so abstracted. And there's this 3-headed dog included too. In our solitude, though, after we've faced that defeat, after we've accepted our losses, after we've done some soul searching, after we realize that it wasn't the other person that I was in conflict with, I was in conflict with myself. That I wasn't willing to allow myself to accept that I just wasn't a match with the other person. That despite all of the experiences and the trauma bonding and helping them and being sort of helped by them, that at the end of the day, I was always alone in that relationship. And if you're in a relationship where you feel alone the whole time, what are you really returning? Like, what are you really losing? You're losing strife. 5 of Wands. You're losing that disconnected direction where you're trying to figure out which way to go. You're always basing it on what the other person is saying, what the other person is thinking. You know, and you're afraid of this, right? We're all afraid. This is scary. This is scary stuff. Conflict is scary. But if you know who you are on the inside, even though you look inside and it's just like, it looks fractured, right? It looks like, how's this all going to connect? Because we're all fractured beings. And part of our duties to ourselves is to become more whole. That is ultimately the goal of the Hermit. And that's the Hermit path. To seek out that direction, to find that true nature, that true will, to use a Crowleyan term, so that you no longer move along the path of another person, you move on your own path. And even if you get lost, you know, yeah, but this was my decision to get lost. This was my decision to be confused. This was my decision to just throw 4 sheets to the wind and see where it takes me. Which was... The Sun. The Sun keeps coming up a lot. And I feel a certain affinity to this card. In the Thoth Tarot, there are 2 child figures. No horse. And you see the inclusion of all the zodiacal symbols. In some sense, it's like a little mini world card. It's a card of celebration, attainment. This is the Hermit, finding that inner light after the defeat. Even if it was a victory, it was a Pyrrhic victory. A Pyrrhic victory is one where you put everything you could into winning that situation. But at the end of the day, you lost more than you won. Yeah, you ask yourself, was it really worth it? If it gets you out of this, it might just be worth it. And if it brings you to this, it might just be worth it. So a question I would ask, looking at the current spread, for the Hermit, what matters the most? Princess of Swords. You know, this is something I forget about with Thoth Tarot, is the Prince and Princesses, or Prince and Princess cards. But that's like page energy. It's page energy in the feminine. This is bold action. And a willingness to relearn. A willingness to pick the sword back up. To get back into the fray, but this time it's for yourself. And this time, your claws are not to hurt, but to help. And to help protect this. And to bring this into reality. 9 of Cups. This is a card of self-satisfaction, of happiness, letting it come from within so that you can share it without. Instead of having to rely on another for happiness, you can rely on yourself. I'm trying to get this card. This is the Hermit's mission come to pass, come to fruition. Oh no, I got 3 cards from what spilled off the top of the deck. I'm thinking about just revealing them all at once. Here. What do we got? We got the Aeon. What is that? Victory. 6 of Wands. And 7 of Swords. See, it is important to express to yourself what battles are not worth fighting. Where do you need to sneak out? Like sometimes, like where do you just like, I'm checking out of this one. I'm going to find the back exit and it's not worth it. By the way, like the camera is kind of shaking right now because like I live next to a railroad, so the train is passing. Where do you need to sneak out? It's okay. You don't have to fight every single battle like this. Because victory is only attainable through a smart use of all your gifts. Don't just throw them all out on the table and expect people to show up and say, here's your ticket. Here's your ticket to happiness. Your ticket to happiness. This is not something, it's not Willy Wonka, unfortunately, right? That happiness is something that is forged, it's created internally. And sometimes it grows out of defeat. Sometimes it grows out of strife. And you can get some sunshine on it, it'll grow a little bit faster, a little bit more fertile. Furtive is the word I want to use. I don't even know what furtive means. It's just the word that comes up. The Aeon card. So in the Thoth Tarot, the Aeon card is what replaces judgment. This is a card of a brand new cycle. This is a grand cycle, too. This is a card of a complete rewriting of your spiritual values, of your goals, of your mission statements. If you really get into, some of the ideas in the Thoth Tarot, this is even like rewriting physics itself. So part of the goal for the Hermit here is how do you totally rewrite yourself from the bottom up? How do you rewrite the code that makes up who you are? So that you're no longer fighting for something based off of how you think it's supposed to go. How can you connect with the movements of the stars, the planets? How can you connect with that? Something deeper than your own ego, than your own ambitions. Because happiness comes from a release of cares or responsibility employed in a way such that you know it's feeding into something bigger than yourself. Conflict is all about conflict is all about at least two different egos trying to trace out their boundaries, trying to understand what is mine and what is theirs, and also what can I get of theirs and make it mine. Defeat is the realization that your boundaries are not as outstretched as you thought they were, that your territory was not where you thought you demarcated it. And you realize that that might have actually been somebody else's territory, or it was never anybody's territory all along. Defeat is realizing that you are at cross purposes with yourself, which is the origin of so much strife in the world. Not even realizing what you're fighting for. You're just fighting. And victory is about the alignment and alliance of all of your purposes, all of the aspects of your will, coming to a place where you realize you're not I don't know what I was going to say. You're just not. You're not that thing you thought you were. I know what that's like. I know what it's like to feel like, oh, I really identified myself with this relationship structure, with this career, with this certain idea of who I'm supposed to be or how I'm supposed to evoke myself in the world. And the realization for me, was that after a bit, it was the realization that I didn't need to be any of those things. I was those things because other people had defined me as such. And I'd find myself in conflict with people because I was trying to defend their definition of myself. And I didn't even really like that definition of myself, I found out later on. I was just scared of what I would lose if the definition went away. That's something I get out of this Princess of Swords card. Somebody who is fighting for that definition of themselves. And that could be a very futile process if you're not careful. I'm not saying you shouldn't have a definition. I'm just saying what that definition is should not be set in stone. Maybe in Plato. There's nothing wrong with setting your definitions of yourself in Plato, because then you can always, reconstruct as you go along. Or an Etch-a-Sketch, then you can shake it up and start over again. Because life is about change. It's about how do we adapt to destruction? How we adapt to a defeat? How do we find ourselves in the dark? Because it's so easy to lose track of where we're going or what we're doing. And so many midlife crises come about because suddenly, you know, all your definitions of yourself fall apart, and you see yourself and you go, what was I doing for the last 30 plus years? It can be a beguiling experience, right? And then in that chaos, in that, like, all the when you find all the cards of yourself just scattered across the floor, right? And you have to, like, put it all back together. You find that there were threads that make sense over the course of time. There are threads that come together in just the right way at just the right time. And then there are threads that just trail off and they don't go anywhere. And that's okay. That's how roots find the water and find the minerals and find what nurtures the plants, right? Not everything is a perfect circle. Yeah, I guess that's all I got to say. Not everything is a perfect circle. All right. I hope this was of something to you. It resonated, helped you. You were able to find some sort of comfort in the words, or some sense of, help with whatever it is that you're going on through your life. In the meantime, if it did resonate with you, feel free to leave a comment. And as always, I'm open to requests. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, whatever is going on. All right, bye.